The planet Letheria glowed under twin suns, a swirling world of golden deserts and glassy oceans. Its cities rising like crystalline towers from the sands, shone in the sunlight, reflecting centuries of alien artistry and technology. But for all its beauty, Letheria was quiet that day. Too quiet. At the heart of the capital city, atop the tallest spire, stood Princess Solara. She was unlike any of her people, tall, graceful, and with eyes that could pierce through the strongest of eyes. Her people had called her aloof, impossible and unapproachable. Since her 16th cycle, she had refused all suitors, no matter how powerful or noble. Letherian tradition required royal marriages to strengthen alliances, yet Solara had defied. Custom visitors from across the stars came to court her. Aliens of all shapes and colors, some shimmering with light, others cloaked in scales, some even without visible mouths who spoke through thought alone. Every suitor brought gifts, promises, and flattery, but Solara met them with polite nods and icy silence. "I am not interested," she said once simply, and the suitors left, humiliated. Among the latest wave of ambassadors was a human, a species few Letherians had ever seen up close. Humans were considered fragile, primitive, and reckless. Their ships were small, their technology rudimentary compared to Letheria's elegant machines. Yet humans had a strange reputation. They survived where others failed, adapted where others faltered, and always somehow emerged victorious. This human, named Captain Adrian Kane, strode into the royal audience hall with no fear and no pretense. His uniform was simple, his boots dusty from space travel, and yet his posture radiated quiet confidence. He had heard of Princess Solara's refusals, but had not come to impress her in the usual way. His mission was to negotiate a trade alliance, but he knew one truth well. Humans did not bow to tradition. They earned respect. The hall fell silent as he entered. Solara sat on her high throne, her flowing robes cascading like liquid starlight. She raised an eyebrow, clearly unimpressed. "Another alien prince, another fool?" she murmured to herself, almost amused. Adrian bowed politely. "Your Highness," he said, "I come on behalf of the United Earth Alliance. I seek friendship and trade, not your hand in marriage." Solara studied him. His voice was calm, steady, not a tremor of fear or flattery. That was unusual. Most visitors quivered under her gaze. "Trade, you say?" she asked. "And what makes you think humans can offer anything of value to Letheria?" Adrian smiled slightly. "Our people may not have towers of crystal or ships that float like glass, but we have ingenuity. We survive, we adapt, we learn from every challenge. That is our greatest gift." The princess's eyes narrowed. "Words are easy. Action is what matters." Adrian leaned forward slightly. "Then I offer proof, not promises. Let me show you how humans act when others hesitate." A murmur ran through the assembled courtiers. They were used to words, not action. Solara's curiosity piqued, though she hid it behind her regal composure. "Very well, human. You will have your chance. But know this. If you fail, you will leave Letheria in shame." Adrian nodded. Understood. The test came sooner than anyone expected. As Adrian toured the city with the princess, an alarm sounded, a deep resonant vibration that shook the spire. Outside, in the desert beyond the city, a massive sandstorm approached at unnatural speed, carrying with it strange metallic shapes. Letherian defense drones scrambled, but the storm was like nothing they had ever encountered. The ships within it were damaged and scattered, clearly a lost fleet seeking refuge or conquest. "Evacuate the people," Solara commanded, her voice clear and commanding. Yet even as she spoke, panic rippled through the palace guards. No one had expected this. Adrian, observing the chaos, did not hesitate. He sprinted toward the control consoles, bypassing formalities. Within minutes, he had rerouted the city's defense systems, repurposing mining drones into emergency shelters and protective shields. Letherian engineers stared, astonished, as human ingenuity turned panic into preparation. The storm hit. fierce. Winds and shards of metal swept across the desert, tearing through weaker buildings. Yet the palace and the surrounding city survived, battered but intact. Adrian worked tirelessly, coordinating the drones, guiding citizens to safety, and repairing critical systems under extreme conditions. When the storm finally passed, the city was shaken, but no lives were lost. Solara watched in silence from her throne, observing how this human had moved among her people, commanding respect not through authority, but through skill, courage, and determination. "You saved them," she said quietly, almost to herself. "You risked your life for strangers." Adrian looked at her. "We humans survive together. Alone we falter, but together we can overcome anything." For the first time, Solara felt a flicker of admiration. Not the polite nod she gave to others, not the ceremonial respect, but real, deep respect. She realized she had been wrong to judge all outsiders, or perhaps even all humans, so quickly. Word spread quickly through Lytheria. The human captain had saved the city from a storm that even their best scientists could not predict. Citizens whispered of his courage, the courtiers of his ingenuity, and the princess. She remained silent, thinking deeply. That evening, in the palace gardens, Solara approached Adrian. The twin suns were setting, casting golden and violet light across the crystalline paths. "You impressed me today," she said. "Most suitors fail with words. You acted." Adrian smiled. "I only did what was necessary. Your people's safety comes first always." Solara tilted her head, her expression unreadable. "Humans, they are strange creatures. You speak little of honor, tradition, or rank, yet you act as if your life and the lives of others are one. It is curious." Adrian shrugged. "We do not have centuries of ceremony to guide us. We have each other. That is enough." For the first time, Solara felt a spark of connection, a realization that perhaps humans were not weak, reckless, or primitive as her advisors had claimed. Perhaps they were something else entirely, unpredictable, courageous, and capable of greatness beyond measure. As night fell over Lytheria, the city's lights shimmering like stars beneath the twin moons, Solara sat alone in her chambers. She thought of Adrian, the human who had not begged for favor, who had not tried to charm her, who had instead acted with bravery and wisdom. "Perhaps," she whispered, "not all aliens, or humans, are fools." The twin moons of Lytheria cast long shadows across the crystalline city as dawn broke. While most of the citizens slept after the night's terrifying storm, Princess Solara remained awake in her private chambers. Her mind replayed the events, over and over, the sandstorm, the crashing debris, the human who moved with such calm purpose. Adrian Kane had saved hundreds of lives with courage that even the Lytherian guards could not match. She could not stop thinking about him. Not in the way her advisors feared, but with curiosity. How could such a fragile species, one so different from Lytherians, act with such precision and bravery? Meanwhile, Adrian had not rested either. The storm's aftermath was still a problem. Buildings had been damaged, drones were offline, and many citizens were frightened. Adrian moved from one emergency site to another, coordinating repairs and rescue efforts. He spoke calmly to the Lytherian engineers, often demonstrating methods they had never seen before. The humans' approach was simple, direct, and shockingly effective. "You do this like it's routine," said Lytherian engineer Kelia, wiping sand from her metallic suit. "How can you remain so calm? Even our best pilots panic in storms like this." Adrian smiled faintly. "We humans have to. If we panic, people die. Calm thinking saves lives." Kelia shook her head in disbelief, but followed his instructions. Slowly, order returned to the city. By mid-morning, Solara decided to observe Adrian herself. She left her tower quietly, disguised under a hooded cloak, and followed him through the streets. She watched how people reacted to him, not with fear, but with trust. Children clung to his hands as he led them to safety zones. Merchants nodded respectfully when he inspected the damage and suggested repairs. Even Lithirian soldiers, usually proud and stern, deferred to his guidance. Solara's curiosity deepened. She had rejected suitors for years, believing no one could understand her world, her duty, or her people's fragile pride. Yet here was a human who did not seek her approval, did not bow to tradition, yet commanded respect without demanding it. The peaceful observation was interrupted by a sudden alarm. Deep in the desert beyond the city, a dark shape moved, faster than any natural phenomenon, colder than the previous storm. It was not a storm at all. It was a fleet, sleek and black, unlike any Lithirian ship. They glided silently through the desert, sending small scouts ahead to probe defenses. Adrian was the first to notice. He leaned over the holographic display in the command center. They're not Lithirians nor any species I've encountered before. Unknown origin but highly advanced. Solara appeared behind him, her cloak brushing against the console. They have come this close before? She asked, her voice steady but tense. Not in recent centuries, Adrian replied, but they are testing the city. I can feel it. We need to prepare. Solara's advisors gathered quickly. Panic flickered across their faces as the news spread. Lithyria had faced storms, pirates, and political intrigue, but never an unknown fleet of this caliber. The princess's calm exterior hid her growing concern. She studied Adrian, seeing the same confidence that had saved the city yesterday. Captain Kane, she said, stepping closer. What do you propose? Adrian pointed to a holographic map. We have to act fast. First, we secure the civilians in the underground shelters I set up yesterday. Then we set traps, non-lethal, but effective. Their scouts will not expect us to fight strategically. We'll use speed, misdirection, and terrain advantage. And finally, we'll observe their main fleet before engaging. Rushing into combat blindly will get us killed. Solara frowned. You speak as if you have done this before. I have faced threats before, he said simply. Different worlds, different species. But the principle is the same. Think, adapt, and survive. Lithirians exchanged worried glances. Their usual response to danger was overwhelming firepower, elegant but slow to deploy. Adrian's methods were unpredictable. Yet Solara saw the logic. She gave a single nod. Do it your way, human. But remember, the city is my responsibility. Do not fail. The next hours were tense. Adrian moved through the city like a conductor, orchestrating every drone, every soldier, every engineer, and every citizen. He set defensive perimeters, arranged ambush points, and built decoys to mislead the alien scouts. Lithirians watched in awe as what seemed like chaos slowly transformed into a coordinated defense. At sunset, the first scouts approached the city. They were sleek, black, and completely silent. They scanned for weaknesses, firing minimal energy, bursts that could destroy small buildings instantly. But Adrian's traps worked perfectly. Magnetic nets, reflective shields, and misdirecting holograms slowed the scouts, disorienting them. Solara watched from the palace tower, heart pounding. For once, she did not feel frustration or annoyance at a visitor. She felt respect, admiration, and something she could not name. The human moved among her people like a force of nature, decisive, fearless, and brilliant. The scouts, realizing they were trapped, attempted to retreat, but Adrian anticipated this. He directed energy pulses to block escape routes while keeping the city safe. In a matter of hours, the scouts were neutralized without significant casualties. Lithirians erupted in cheers, their disbelief evident. Solara descended from her tower, moving directly to Adrian. You did it. You saved the city again, she said, her voice steady but softer than before. Adrian wiped sweat from his forehead and smiled. We saved it together. Your people followed instructions. They fought with me. Solara studied him, noticing how unlike any other suitor he was. He did not seek reward, glory, or even acknowledgement. He acted because it was necessary. His courage was not for fame, it was instinctive. "You humans," she said, almost in awe. "You think differently. You do not bow to protocol or ceremony. You do not fear failure, only inaction." Adrian shrugged. "We cannot afford inaction. If we hesitate, we die. If we act, we survive. That is our way." For the first time, Solara felt something shift, inside her. All those years of rejecting suitors had been based on pride and expectation. Yet here was a human who did not care for her titles or customs, who did not seek her approval, yet earned it naturally. She wanted to understand him, to learn from him, and perhaps to test him further. But before she could think more, the main fleet arrived. Larger than expected, faster than predicted, and with technology unlike anything the Litharians had seen. They hovered in the sky like a dark cloud, their ships pulsating with strange energy. Their intent was clear. They were not here for trade. Adrian's eyes narrowed. "They came for war," he said simply. "And we are ready to meet them." Solara felt a surge of fear, quickly replaced by determination. She had watched humans act under pressure, seen them survive where others failed. If Adrian could handle scouts with minimal casualties, perhaps they could face this new threat together. She stepped beside him. "What do we do first?" "We fight smart," Adrian said. "Not for glory, not for conquest, but for survival. If we can outthink them, we can outlast them. If we fail, we adapt and fight again. That is what humans do." The princess nodded. For the first time in years, she felt the stirrings of hope and trust, not in her own people's tradition, but in a human. Adrian Kane had changed her perception, not through words or flattery, but through action, courage, and ingenuity. The alien fleet hovered above Litharia like a living shadow, dark and vast, blotting out the twin suns. Citizens in the city below panicked, rushing to shelters or clinging to loved ones. The Litharian defense forces prepared their elegant ships, crystal shields, and energy weapons, but even their most experienced commanders looked uneasy. They had never faced a threat like this. Princess Solara stood beside Adrian Kane on the balcony of the palace tower. Her long robes caught the early morning light, yet her gaze was fixed on the alien ships. She had seen courage before, but the human captain's calm presence steadied her. Even amid chaos, he was composed, assessing and planning. "They're enormous," Solara whispered. "Even your humans would struggle to fight them." Adrian's eyes were sharp, scanning the fleet. "Humans survive where others fail. We look for weaknesses, not strength. That is the difference." The first wave of enemy ships descended, black and metallic, their surfaces shimmering like liquid night. They fired energy pulses toward the city outskirts, cutting through the desert and shattering some of the older buildings. Litharian ships responded, but their beams bounced off the alien hulls harmlessly. It was clear, brute force alone would not work. Adrian moved quickly to the command center. He tapped controls, pulling up a holographic map of the battlefield. "Listen carefully. The fleet's formation is tight but predictable. Their sensors are advanced, but they rely heavily on scanning the environment. We can use that. I need teams to create decoy signals, misdirect their targeting, and lead them into traps." Litharian commanders exchanged nervous glances. Traps? Against a fleet this size? That is, reckless. Adrian turned to them, calm and steady. "Reckless is standing still and hoping they fail. We adapt. That is how humans survive." Solara watched closely, fascinated. She had always valued intelligence and strategy, but the human's approach combined both with courage and action. He did not wait for orders. He did not ask for permission. He acted. The first decoy drones moved out under Adrian's direction. They emitted energy signatures similar to the city's shields, drawing the aliens' fire. Alien energy beams sliced through the decoys, but the traps held. The drones were lined with magnetic pulses that caused the alien ship's systems to short-circuit briefly. The human fleet had learned the alien pattern almost instantly. The Litharians could not hide their astonishment. "He understands them before we do," muttered one officer. Adrian nodded. Predict, react, adapt. That is survival. Meanwhile, Solara coordinated with the human and Letherian teams to evacuate civilians from areas the aliens had targeted. She moved swiftly, directing engineers to reinforce shelters and reroute power to protective shields. She had never acted so decisively in the field before, yet under Adrian's calm guidance, she found herself moving as naturally as any soldier. The alien fleet adjusted their strategy. A massive ship detached from the formation, moving directly toward the city's central tower. Its energy pulses were intense, powerful enough to pierce the thickest crystal walls. Solara froze. That ship could destroy her palace and kill thousands instantly. Adrian glanced at her, eyes steady. We cannot let them reach the city core. Take the city's small attack vessels and follow me. I'll lead it away from civilians. Solara hesitated for only a moment before nodding. She had learned to trust the human's instincts. Together, they boarded a fleet of sleek Letherian crafts, small but fast, and rose into the sky. Adrian piloted the lead craft with precision, weaving through debris and energy blasts. Solara followed closely, her heart pounding but her mind focused. The alien ship advanced, firing massive beams that tore through sand and rock. Adrian guided their small fleet in daring maneuvers, using the terrain and clever tactics to dodge attacks. He fired energy pulses at weak points he had identified in the enemy ship's hull, causing it to stagger and change course. Solara watched in awe. Humans, she realized, did not need sheer strength. They relied on observation, creativity, and decisive action. Each movement Adrian made was calculated yet fluid, as if he could see possibilities before they happened. The alien ship, frustrated, altered its course to return to the main fleet. Adrian did not chase blindly. Instead, he led it into a narrow canyon where the fleet could be trapped. Magnetic nets and energy fields, set up by Letherian engineers under Adrian's direction, slowed the ship and caused temporary system failures. It was a perfect human trap, efficient, precise, and non-lethal. As the alien ship faltered, Solara couldn't help but feel a sense of pride, not just in Adrian, but in the way her people had risen to the challenge under his guidance. They were working together, combining Letherian technology with human ingenuity. Back in the city, the main fleet became increasingly confused. Their formation faltered as decoy signals and traps disrupted their targeting systems. Letherian defenses, coordinated by Adrian, began to work effectively. Energy shields protected civilians and countermeasures disrupted alien beams. Slowly, the advantage shifted. Solara realized something profound. Humans were not just survivors. They were catalysts. They made others rise to their potential. Without Adrian, the Letherians might have panicked, or worse, surrendered. With him, they became more than the sum of their parts. The battle raged for hours. Drones clashed with alien scouts, energy pulses lit the desert sky, and Letherian ships maneuvered in ways no one had imagined. And through it all, Adrian remained calm, adjusting strategies in real time, predicting enemy movements, and coordinating the city's defenses flawlessly. At one point, Solara found herself piloting a small craft alongside him, engaging alien drones. Her hands shook at first, but Adrian's guidance was steady, precise. "Trust your instincts," he said calmly. "Observe, act, adapt. You are capable of more than you think." She nodded, taking a deep breath. The words resonated. They were not orders. They were encouragement. And she followed, striking drones, avoiding attacks, and saving civilians. For the first time, Solara felt truly alive, not as a princess confined by protocol, but as a leader capable of decisive action. By nightfall, the alien fleet had been forced to retreat. Their scouts were destroyed or disabled, their main ships damaged and unable to pursue. Letheria had survived, not through overwhelming force, but through strategy, courage, and collaboration, the hallmarks of human thinking applied to a city of aliens. The city erupted in cheers. Citizens poured into the streets, celebrating their survival. Solara descended from her craft, her robes dusted with sand and energy residue. She looked at Adrian, exhausted but unbowed, and felt a deep sense of respect, more than she had ever felt for any suitor, any ally, any being. "You saved my city," she said quietly, almost in awe. "Not through power, but through thought, through action, through courage." Adrian smiled, brushing sand from his uniform. "We saved it together. Your people fought, your engineers built, your soldiers followed. I only guided. Humans survive together. We need each other to succeed." Solara studied him closely. For years, she had rejected all suitors, believing none could match her ideals, none could rise to her expectations. Yet here was a human who had done more than meet expectations. He had exceeded them in ways she had never imagined. "I misjudged humans," she admitted softly. "I thought you were weak, reckless, primitive. But you are remarkable." Adrian shook his head, a small smile on his face. "We're not perfect. We make mistakes, but we do not give up. We adapt. We survive. And sometimes we inspire others to do the same." Solara's eyes softened. She realized she was inspired, not by flattery, not by words, but by action. Adrian Kane had shown her what humanity could achieve. Courage under pressure, intelligence in chaos, and a will to survive that was unmatched. And as the city celebrated, and the alien fleet retreated into the night sky, Solara felt something new stirring within her. Hope, trust, and perhaps even admiration, for a species she had never believed could reach such heights. But the battle was not truly over. Adrian had seen patterns in the enemy ships, signs that hinted at a larger plan, something far more dangerous than scouts in a single fleet. And Solara knew that she would follow this human, not because he asked, but because she wanted to see how far his courage and ingenuity could take them. For the first time, she thought not of tradition, not of protocol, but of potential, human potential, and what it could mean for her world. The night settled over Letheria, calm but charged with tension, and in the shadow of the twin moons, a new alliance formed, one based not on custom, ceremony, or duty, but on respect, courage, and shared purpose. The morning sun rose over Letheria, casting long golden beams across the city. The twin moons had disappeared behind the horizon, but the sense of unease remained. The alien fleet's retreat had been unexpected, and the humans and Letherians alike knew it was only temporary. The battle yesterday had revealed a new truth. Letheria's enemies were strategic, relentless, and more advanced than anything the planet had faced in centuries. Princess Solara stood on the balcony of her palace, looking out at the desert beyond, the city. The scars of yesterday's battle were visible, buildings damaged, drones scattered, and the streets still dusty from the storm and energy pulses. Her mind was not on the damage, but on the human who had saved her people. Adrian Kane had shown her a perspective she had never considered, that courage and intelligence could overcome raw power. He had requested a private meeting in the command center, and Solara, intrigued and determined to understand him better, had agreed. She moved through the palace corridors with quiet steps, observing her advisors preparing reports and engineers planning repairs. She no longer felt the need to direct every action herself. For the first time, she trusted someone else's judgment, entirely. Adrian stood at the holographic display analyzing the alien fleet's retreat. His brow was furrowed, eyes scanning patterns, signals, and anomalies. He had spent the entire night reviewing the data from the battle, looking for weaknesses, learning how the fleet operated. "Good morning, Your Highness," he said without looking up. "I've identified their patterns. The fleet is retreating, but it is not random. They are regrouping, likely to launch a coordinated strike, and they are learning. That makes them dangerous." Solara crossed her arms, studying him. "Then we must be ready. How do you propose we defend the city if they return?" Adrian gestured to the holographic map. "We cannot rely on conventional defense. Their ships absorb energy like nothing. We have seen. Letherian shields alone will not stop them. We need a combination of tactics, misdirection, traps, and coordinated strikes. And more importantly, we need to prepare your people to act independently and adapt quickly." Solara nodded, slowly. So you want to train my soldiers, my engineers, even civilians in your human methods? Yes, Adrian said firmly. Humans survive because we can improvise, adapt, and act decisively. If your people learn that mindset, Letheria will not just survive, it will fight back effectively. Solara considered this. For years, her advisors had lectured her on tradition, protocol, and careful strategy. None had prepared her for the unpredictability of this enemy. Yet Adrian's approach made sense. He had proven it yesterday. She made her decision. Very well, she said. We begin immediately. The next days were a whirlwind of preparation. Adrian moved through the city like a storm of energy and focus. He trained soldiers in small squads, demonstrating rapid decision-making under pressure. He worked with engineers to create adaptive energy shields, deployable traps, and mobile command units, and he encouraged civilians to assist in evacuation. Procedures, supply distribution, and intelligence gathering, Solara observed and participated. At first, she struggled to keep up with Adrian's pace and methods, but she learned quickly. His instructions were clear, concise, and effective. More importantly, he expected her to act, to think, and to make decisions. He treated her not as a princess, but as a capable leader. One afternoon, while the sun blazed overhead, Adrian led Solara to the city's outer perimeter. There they observed the desert beyond, looking for signs of the returning fleet. They will come from multiple angles, Adrian said, pointing to a section of the desert. Their main strike will aim at the city center, but smaller groups will attempt flanking maneuvers. If we are ready, we can funnel them into traps and disable their systems without risking civilians. Solara watched as he laid out the plan, noting every detail. It was bold, unconventional, and risky, yet she trusted him completely. You're humans, she said, shaking her head slightly. You fight not just with weapons, but with thought, foresight, and courage. I have never seen anything like it. Adrian glanced at her, eyes calm. That is how humans survive, Princess. We make mistakes, yes, but we adapt and learn faster than most species. That is our greatest strength. The first signs of the alien fleet appeared by mid-afternoon. Shadows moved over the desert, black ships glinting in the sunlight, silent but deadly. Citizens hurried to shelters, soldiers took positions, and Adrian moved through the command center, coordinating every action. The battle began in earnest. Small alien scouts moved ahead, testing defenses. Adrian deployed decoy drones, energy nets, and reflective barriers to misdirect them. Letherian soldiers followed his guidance, learning to anticipate rather than react. Solara piloted a small craft alongside Adrian, observing his strategy in real time. She was amazed by his ability to predict enemy movements and adapt instantly. When a scout attempted a surprise attack, Adrian redirected a squad of ships to intercept, using the terrain and energy fields to their advantage. The attack failed and the scout was captured without significant damage to the city. Hours passed and the main fleet arrived. Their ships were massive, black, and pulsating with energy. Letherian shields absorbed some of the damage, but the enemy's technology was clearly superior. Yet Adrian remained unshaken. Focus on strategy, not strength, he instructed. Lead them where we want. Use their own momentum against them. Solara followed his guidance, coordinating with other Letherian pilots. The battle became a dance of strategy and precision. Decoys drew enemy fire, traps immobilized ships, and energy pulses disrupted their systems. Slowly, the advantage shifted. For the first time, Letherian soldiers acted with confidence. They were no longer relying solely on technology. They were thinking, improvising, and reacting as Adrian had taught them. Civilians assisted in intelligence gathering, reporting movements and signals. The entire city moved as a single coordinated force. By nightfall, the alien fleet had suffered significant losses and was forced to retreat again. Letheria had survived, but the cost was evident. Buildings were damaged, some drones destroyed, and the city was exhausted. Yet the people were stronger, braver, and more united than ever before. Solara approached Adrian, her expression a mixture of admiration and relief. You have changed everything, she said softly. Not just for me, but for my people. They will never see themselves the same way again. Adrian nodded. That is the point. Strength is not just in weapons. It is in courage, intelligence, and the ability to work together. Humans survive because we adapt and help each other. Your people have the same potential. Solara studied him, realizing something profound. She had spent years isolated by her own expectations, rejecting suitors because none matched her ideals. Yet here was a human who had exceeded all her ideals, not through power or ceremony, but through action, courage, and ingenuity. I have underestimated your species, she admitted. You are remarkable. Adrian smiled faintly. We are not perfect, but we never give up. That is enough. As night fell over Letheria, the princess and the human stood together, looking out over the city. Fires burned in the distance where repairs were ongoing, and the people were moving forward, stronger than before. Solara felt a new sense of hope and purpose. She had trusted a human and he had proven worthy, but even as the city celebrated, a shadow loomed on the horizon. The alien fleet was retreating, but not defeated. They were regrouping, learning from their mistakes, and preparing for a return. Adrian had noticed subtle patterns in their behavior, signs of a larger, more dangerous force waiting beyond the known galaxy. Solara realized that the challenges ahead would be greater than any she had faced. Yet for the first time, she did not feel fear. With Adrian by her side, she knew they could face whatever came next. This is only the beginning, she said quietly, and with humans like you, perhaps Letheria can endure anything. Adrian looked at her, his calm eyes reflecting determination. We survive together, he said. Always. In that moment, a bond formed, not of obligation or tradition, but of respect, trust, and shared purpose. The alien princess and the human captain stood ready, united against a threat that none could face alone. The battle for Letheria had taught them both something vital. Courage, intelligence, and unity could overcome even the most formidable foes, and in the days ahead they would need all three to face the darkness that awaited beyond the stars. The horizon burned with the light of 1,000 alien ships. The returning fleet was larger, faster, and more organized than before. From the sky above Letheria, shadows stretched across the desert, blotting out the suns and casting a sense of dread over the city. Citizens huddled in shelters, soldiers prepared their weapons, and engineers worked tirelessly to reinforce energy shields. Princess Solara stood beside Adrian Kane on the palace balcony. Her robes swirled in the hot wind, but her gaze was fixed on the fleet. She no longer felt fear, not entirely. Instead, she felt determination, a determination born from trust, respect, and shared experience. This is it, she said, her voice steady. If they destroy the city, everything we've built, everything we've survived, will be lost. Adrian studied the approaching fleet. Then we make sure that does not happen. We fight smart, we fight together, and we fight without hesitation. Solara nodded. She had learned much from him over the past days. Courage under pressure, strategy in chaos, and the strength of collaboration. For the first time in her life, she was ready to face a threat without relying on tradition, protocol, or expectation. She trusted humans, and Adrian, completely. The first wave of enemy ships descended into the desert surrounding Letheria. They fired massive energy beams cutting through sand and rock. Letherian shields absorbed some damage, but the fleet's strength was overwhelming. Adrian moved quickly, coordinating the defense with precision. Deploy the decoys, he commanded. Use the traps. Lead them into the canyon passages. Letherian pilots followed his guidance. The city's engineers activated adaptive shields and magnetic nets. Civilians in shelters assisted by relaying signals and status updates. Slowly, the alien ships were funneled into narrow passages where their mobility was limited. Solara piloted her own craft, following Adrian closely. He had taught her to observe enemy movements, anticipate actions, and adapt in real time. Her hands were steady now, her mind focused. She fired energy pulses at alien scouts, destroyed smaller ships, and coordinated with other pilots to protect vulnerable areas. "Look at them," Adrian shouted, pointing to the alien formation. "Their main fleet is concentrating fire on the city center. That is our opening. Lead them into the traps near the canyon entrance." Solara adjusted her course, guiding the enemy ships exactly where Adrian wanted. As they entered the canyon, energy nets rose from the ground. Magnetic pulses disabled. Engines and adaptive shields protected Letheria from stray fire. Alien ships faltered, slowed, and collided with one another. The citizens below watched in awe. Letherian forces, once confident only in their technology, now acted with ingenuity, courage, and precision. And the human who led them was the catalyst, the one who had inspired them to adapt, improvise, and survive. Adrian noticed a massive ship breaking formation, the command vessel of the alien fleet. It was the largest and most dangerous, its energy pulses capable of destroying entire districts. He gestured to Solara. "That ship cannot reach the city. We take it down. Together." Solara's heart pounded. She had never faced such a threat, yet she felt ready. They moved toward the command vessel, dodging fire and debris. Adrian's strategy was simple but brilliant. Target weak points, disrupt communication, and disable engines. "Follow my lead," he said. "We hit it from both sides. You focus on engine systems, I'll handle shields and weapons." Solara nodded. She moved her craft with precision, aiming energy pulses at critical engine ports. Sparks flew as engines faltered. The ship lurched violently, trying to correct its course. Adrian struck the shields and weapons arrays simultaneously, causing a cascade of system failures. The alien command vessel shook, smoke and energy sparks erupting across its hull. The remaining fleet, seeing their leader in distress, began to retreat, but Adrian had anticipated this. "Push them back," he shouted. "Do not let them regroup." Letherian ships, civilians in command units, and Adrian's guidance combined to force the alien fleet into a final trap. Magnetic fields, adaptive shields, and decoy signals disabled the remaining ships. Slowly, steadily, the alien threat collapsed, retreating into the void from which it had come. Silence followed. Letheria had survived. The city was battered, some buildings destroyed, but the people were alive. The streets filled with cheering citizens, soldiers, and engineers celebrating their victory. They had faced the impossible and triumphed. Solara stood beside Adrian, taking in the scene. "You did this," she said softly. "Not just for me, not just for the city, but for all of us. You taught my people to fight differently, to survive, and to believe in themselves." Adrian shook his head, smiling faintly. "I only guided. Your people acted. They adapted. They learned. Humans survive together, and we bring out the best in those around us." Solara's eyes softened. She had spent years isolated, rejecting suitors because none could meet her expectations. Yet here was a human who had exceeded them in every way. Not through power, flattery, or title, but through action, courage, and intelligence. "You have changed my world," she said, "and perhaps in time humans will change more than that." Adrian glanced at the city, then back at her. "If your people continue to adapt, learn, and work together, Letheria can face any threat. You are stronger than you know, Princess. Your leadership combined with human ingenuity, there is nothing you cannot overcome." Solara smiled, feeling something she had not felt in years. Trust. Not just in Adrian, but in her people, in humanity, and in the possibilities of the future. In the days that followed, Letheria rebuilt. Buildings rose from the sand, drones were repaired, and citizens resumed their lives, but something had changed. The city was no longer just a beautiful desert jewel. It was a place of resilience, courage, and unity. Letherians had learned to adapt, to trust their instincts, and to follow where humans led. Adrian Kane remained by Solara's side, helping to train, teach, and inspire. His presence was no longer that of a visitor or ambassador, but of a partner and guide. Together, they explored the desert beyond the city, tested new technologies, and prepared for any future threats. Solara often watched him, remembering the first day he had arrived, unassuming, confident, and unafraid. She had thought him fragile, perhaps reckless, yet he had proven himself invaluable. Humans were unpredictable, resilient, and extraordinary. "You know," she said one evening, standing beside Adrian on the palace balcony, "I never imagined a human could earn my respect, not like this. You have done more than I could have expected." Adrian smiled. "Respect is earned, Princess, and your people, your city, they earned it too. Humans survive together, but we thrive when we inspire others to do the same." Solara looked out over the city, the golden light of the twin suns reflecting off crystalline spires. She felt hope, pride, and a deep sense of possibility. For the first time, she believed that Letheria could face anything, even threats beyond the stars. "And the aliens," she said quietly. "They will come again, perhaps stronger, smarter, more prepared." Adrian nodded. "Then we will be ready, not just with technology or power, but with courage, strategy, and the strength of people working together. That is how humans survive. That is how Letheria will endure." Solara turned to him, a faint smile on her lips. "I think I have underestimated humans for too long. Perhaps they are the greatest allies we could have hoped for." Adrian shrugged, modest but confident. "We are not perfect, but we never give up, and we never fight alone." The city below thrived, Letherians learning, adapting, and rebuilding. The alien fleet had been repelled, but the universe was vast and full of dangers. Yet now, Princess Solara knew something she had never known before. Humanity, with its courage, ingenuity, and resilience, could meet any challenge. And together, humans and Letherians could face the stars, unafraid. The twin suns set over Letheria, casting long shadows across the desert. The city's light sparkled, reflecting hope, courage, and determination. Solara stood beside Adrian, not as a princess commanding from above, but as a leader inspired by a human who had shown her the power of action, intelligence, and trust.